everybody. Welcome to the webinar. Hi, welcome to the webinar. Just give a few minutes for people to get logged in, and then we'll get started. Hello, thanks for joining. Thanks for joining. We'll just give it just a couple more minutes as people continue to join, and then we'll get started. All right. We'll just give it one more minute. All right, well, I think we will get started. All right, so thank you for joining us for our webinar today for L&D's new normal, preparing now for the future. So we would like to welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us this morning. We're really excited to have a chat about what's coming in the future and how we can be prepared as L&D professionals. So if you've got any questions, feel free to put them in the chat and we'll answer them as we go along. And yeah, we'll get started. So I'd like to turn the time over to Carolyn, and she will get us going.
Hi everyone, I'm Carolyn from Go1. I am a global learning strategist. I've been in L&D for 20-ish years. I'm looking forward to the conversation today. We're having a minor technical issue with Sam, so hopefully he will join soon. We're just trying to get his audio working. And we've got Cindy Pascale who will be leading the conversation. She's got a great presentation. So Cindy, I will let you introduce yourself and get started.
Excellent, thank you. Thank you everyone for joining the webinar today or watching the recorded version. My name is Cindy Pascale. I'm one of the co-founders of Vado. Vado is an off-the-shelf e-learning courseware provider specializing in management and leadership development, employee business skills, sexual harassment, and compliance and sales courses. And all of our courses are available on the Go1 platform. And when the pandemic started, I really got thinking about, everyone's talking about the new normal, and from different things from, what's going to happen with our schools. Our kids are going back to school now, and how long will that last? Are they, going to really be able to be in the classroom? We're thinking about sporting events and concerts, and what is really going to end up to be our new normal. And so there's all this chatter about the new normal for other parts of life, I got thinking about what's going to be the new normal for learning and development. And, we look at learning and development and all the different ways that we train our employees, from instructor-led workshops to virtual instructor-led workshops, e-learning, blended learning, mentoring, coaching, and how is that all going to change? Will it change? I guess that's the first question. Will it change? And then how might it change? And if we think about, we should add a code word. We think about historically the transition and the move from instructor-led training to online training. Some of the reasons that were, reasons to start doing online learning, it costs less. Learning retention is better, 25 to 60% better in some cases. Shorter training time, it takes less time to complete training, anywhere between 40 and 60% less time to train someone using an online instead of a face-to-face. More consistent. If you've got a number of different trainers delivering the same PowerPoint slide deck, the same training, there is going to be differences in how that delivery comes out. It's learner-centric. Learners can take the training when they want, where they want. They can take, a few minutes, come back to it later. So very learner-centric. Flexibility, another thing I just mentioned, the flexibility to do it when and where is right for the learner. And you can go back and review. Learners complete the course, maybe they need a refresher, they are in a situation and they know that they learned about this and that, a certain course, they can go back and review. So those are some of the historic reasons that companies transitioned from instructor-led training to e-learning. And then the pandemic hit and we have some new reasons. So the first new reason,
Oh, sorry.
we're jumping ahead. The first reason, learning consumption during the pandemic has increased up to 3 times than before the pandemic. And I think part of the reason for that is there was just this big rush to get people out of the offices, back home, working in their home office, maybe without a lot of direction on what to do and how to do it. Now, we're all now working remote, and I think a lot of companies said, okay, you need to take your required training, sexual harassment training, some safety training. Let's just get that done while we kind of figure everything out. I think that's one reason. I think the second reason, people are at home, maybe not as busy as they had been before, and taking some initiative to improve their skills. I always wanted to learn more about Excel. I'm going to go take some Excel courses. I think those are the 2 big reasons. The second reason that people are that there's going to be a transition away from instructor-led training is that analysts are predicting that 25 to 30% of the people that previously were full-time in an office will remain working from home. They've kind of proved it to their leader that they can do it and be successful. They kind of like not having that long commute and they have found other things to do with their time. And so if you think about, people are not going to go back to the office, or at least 25 to 30% if the analysts are accurate, that's a really good reason to have people transition to e-learning courses. And then the third reason is social distancing. You just can't get 25, 30, 40 people in a classroom and bring them together like you did before. So if you're going to keep doing instructor-led training and bringing people together in a classroom, you need to keep that 6 feet separation, and that means you're going to be running those workshops you're more with fewer people in them. So I think we have a poll question here. I'd like to hear from the audience. Of the three trends that we just talked about, I'd like to get your opinions on, do you think this is going to stay the same, increase or decrease in the future? Are we having difficulties with the poll?
No, I'm bringing it up right now.
Okay. So as it relates to learning consumption, do you think learning consumption is going to stay at the same rate that it has been? Is it going to increase or is it going to decrease? And what do you think about working from home? You know, we heard the analysts say it's going to increase 25 to 30%. What do you think? Is it going to stay the same as pre-pandemic levels, increase from pre-pandemic levels, or decrease? And then the same with social distancing. Will that stay the same, or will it increase or decrease?
All right, we'll give it just a few more minutes. It looks like got about 50% who voted so far.
And while we wait for that, I just wanted to remind people while Cindy's speaking, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the Q&A. I'll even try to monitor the chat as well.
Okay. And did we get Sam's audio fixed?
We did not. We're still working on it.
Okay. I was going to ask him a question and I realized I don't know that he can answer. Okay.
All right, it looks like we've got the polling in, so let's look at those results.
So learning consumption, it looks like, 64% are thinking that learning consumption is going to continue to increase. That's great. Work from home, 68% predict that that's going to increase, and the social distancing, it looks like half of the audience is thinking it's going to stay the same. And I agree with what everyone has, with where the majorities are. So we can close that. And I included a quote from an article that was in Forbes magazine in May of 20. The author put out a really bold statement that education and training that can be done online will be done online always from this point forward. That is, wow, that's quite the prediction, that if it can be done online, it's going to be done online. And you think about that, if that is true, that is going to put a tremendous impact on learning and development and what they need to do to adjust to the new normal. That training, if it can be done online, will be done online.
So Cindy, are you seeing, just from a content provider perspective, are you seeing an increase in consumption of your product and more people purchasing licenses from your company? Absolutely. Tell me a little bit more about what you're seeing at your company.
Absolutely. We are seeing more and more companies go, that they're pivoting from instructor-led to online training. And I would say, think about geographically, a lot of companies in North America had already pivoted or already started that pivot from instructor-led to online training. Now, companies in other parts of the world are very fast, making that pivot.
And so someone just asked, what's the #1 course you're seeing right now? And is that any different from the #1 course before the pandemic?
I would say we've had a little shift, but I think it was really short term. When the pandemic hit here in North America, that mid-March timeframe, we saw a spike in our sexual harassment training go up. And I think that was because people, that push to get people working from home, as they got organized working from home, it's like, okay, you need to do sexual harassment training, do it. You need to do some compliance training, just, take these courses, fill your time. But now there are other shifts. I would say we have some courseware around remote leadership and working from home. We've had a big spike in those courses as well. And now we're coming back to, okay, really good management and leadership development. All right. Any other questions, or should we move forward?
Nope, that was it for right now.
So the big question is, what should L&D do now to prepare for the new normal? And there are 8 things. So the first one, I think, if we think about that author in Forbes magazine that says, if it can be done online, it will be done online. I think L&D leaders need to really put a lens to their training and think about that question. Does it need to be done online? Or does it need to be done in person, face-to-face or virtual? And separate and put the two. Make sure the things that absolutely have to be done in a face-to-face, whether it's in a classroom or in a virtual setting, let's figure that out. Let's separate them. And once you have that separation, then we can talk about build or buy. So classic decision for most companies, build or buy. Are we going to build this course? Are we going to take the instructor-led workshop and turn it into an online course, or should we buy it? Typically, experts will say if it's really critical to your business and about your business's standard operating procedures or certain technology, it's probably better off to build it. If it's general information like sexual harassment training, management development, leadership development, it's better to buy it in terms of how you're going to use your internal resources. Which then that leads me to if you're going to build, you want to make sure that you're putting good instructional design into what you're building. You don't want to just take the slide deck and throw it into your authoring tool, create a SCORM package. That's boring. You don't want to do that. You're going to want to put some good instructional design into it. Use video, use voiceover, use other learner engagement things.
Cindy, what do you think the most popular format has that, in terms of how long a course should be, how has that changed, and what do you recommend in length and format?
Yeah, I'm a big believer in microlearning. There's a lot of research that's been done on microlearning in terms of learner retention. To us, microlearning means one small learning objective per course, so that people can get they can get very close to what they need. So communication skills, that's a very, very, very broad topic, and it ranges everything from presentation skills to knowing your audience, listening skills, delivering a clear message, nonverbals. I mean, it's a very, very big topic, and having one learning objective per course allows me to select, okay, maybe I'm not a very good listener. I can find a course on listening and really build that, whereas somebody else might identify nonverbals or delivering a clear message. So microlearning, short courses, leads to better learner retention. And it looks like Sam joined.
You're kidding. This is so exciting. All right, good. Sam, feel free to chime in as soon as I know you've been listening, so if there's anything you wanted to comment on, feel free. But I'm so excited. Can I hear your voice? Are you actually here?
Oh, I hope you can hear my voice. We don't have camera just yet, but.
All right, everyone. The famous Sam is here as well. And just to give a quick intro, since he wasn't in the beginning, he is now at Convitac, which is a client of both Go1, and they do use Vado as well. So thanks, Sam. I'm sorry for all the glitches this afternoon.
That's okay. They are going around. You just have to say 2020 and everybody knows what that means. It's going to go as planned. And I completely agree with everything that Cindy has been presenting, I think we've seen maybe the average is 3 times more learning consumption online. But really, there's so many things in our organization that weren't tracked before, or weren't tracked to the level that they maybe could have been or should have been before. And we kind of knew, but now there's no exception. There's no excuse. And as far as trends, we're seeing the need for more off-the-shelf content than ever before, because some of the things that we were previously delivering as ILTs, workshops where people come together in a room and, breathe together and all that thing we can't do anymore. If that is, say, a Lean Six Sigma training, or some kind of project management training where there's a way that we do it internally to our company. And there's value, of course, in having everybody in the room. Once they're no longer in that room, does it still make sense that we transition that content? Or does it make more sense that we use content that's off the shelf, that has already been tried and tested and already has all those instructional design principles applied to it, like Cindy's talking about? So we are still actively building a bunch of content, but there's more need than ever before to really examine that need and to look at off-the-shelf content as well.
Yeah, and that's definitely a trend that we saw almost within days of when things started shutting down. Similar situations. I mean, it could even be, we had customers who had warehouse staff that they could no longer train at all. And so there was a quick shift to e-learning that they weren't even anticipating. So even from a license standpoint, we were seeing, they had 7,000 licenses and they need 3,000 more tomorrow because they needed to get compliance training taken care of, that they were expecting to be able to do in person and no longer. So that's definitely a trend we saw.
Yeah, that's certainly what we're facing. Over half of our employees are people that are working in manufacturing plants making things. And before, you could just have, a few minutes in between shifts, talk to people on the shop floor. Now you can't. So how is it that we address that? In our organization, which is fairly mature in some ways, for that population, like the warehouse staff you're talking about, they don't even have emails. They've never needed them.
Yeah.
They have logins, but how would they log in? How would they know to do that? There's not even bandwidth at the plants. But as far as extending licensing, yeah, that's been a big hurdle for us. We had those existing accounts, but only to like backfill training. And now we need to actually deliver training. It's a very different problem.
Yeah. All right, Cindy, we derailed you a little bit. If you want to keep going, you can.
Yeah, I think we're ready for the next slide. And it should say, it's a checklist. So if you're going to buy courses, we just talked about building courses. For those courses that are not central to how you do your run your business, like Sam was talking about project management or standard operating procedures, you can buy courses, and you want to make sure that they are engaging. You want to make sure that they're not old. They should definitely be 2 years old or younger, that they're mobile responsive, that they're short, micro learning. There's a lot of award-winning courseware providers out there. 508 compliant, that's accessibility. So just, you can use that as a little checklist for buying courses. You can take the courses that you buy and map them to your instructor-led workshops. Make sure the learning objectives match up so that you can replace one workshop, whether it's a 2-hour or 4-hour workshop, with multiple micro-learning courses. And many content providers will do that, will map their courses to your learning objectives from your workshops. Collaboration tools, a big thing that gets missed, or learners can miss, I guess is how I want to say that, is the interaction you get when you're in a workshop with 20 people that you work with, and you're talking about what you're all learning together, and that collaboration. And so you want to think about a way to have a substitute for that. If they're not going to be together in a workshop, you want to enable the collaboration tool that your LMS has. If your LMS does not have a collaboration tool, you want to use a different system that your company probably has. You won't, as the instructor, you're going to want to start discussions, post questions, respond, that kind of thing, so that people can continue learning from each other through the collaboration tools. Then we want to talk about what are we doing for our remote workers. You want to make sure that you're developing them, making sure that they can continue to be productive while working from home. There's a lot of obstacles to that, especially if the worker is trying to double as a part-time school teacher with with kids at home. You want to help them as much as you can. Same with your remote managers. Leading their, pre-pandemic, there were a lot of people that were, developing leaders to lead. And then when you layer on remotely, you don't see these people face to face to have the coaching sessions that you would have as you're walking through the hallway or you overhear something. So there are some different skills needed for to be a remote leader. Sam, any thoughts on those?
Yes, certainly a very different set of skills. Assuming that even that the managers can manage in this environment, or that learners are comfortable being on camera, in a virtual kind of environment. There's some very simple things that I think we're all becoming a bit more accustomed to, but there's a transition, and we're in it right now. Getting back to that idea of the new normal, I think it very much is normal going forward, to have the expectation to be able to manage effectively from this kind of position.
Mm-hmm. I think the next slide has an offer. I wrote a paper called L&D's New Normal, Prepare Now, and it's available for free as a download from our website. And you have the link on the slide, or you can send me an email or call me. I'd be happy to send it to you.
Okay, great.
I'm working on actually I'm going to put that link right in the chat too, if people want it right now.
Perfect.
So Cindy, I do have a couple of questions. We had another one asked. So how do you think learner expectations have changed? Sam, this one's for you too. I mean, so it's not just about the manager's expectations or or L&D expectations. How have what the learner's expecting, how has that changed?
Go ahead, Cindy.
No, I'll let you, Sam. You can go first.
Well, learners expect learning to still happen, and which is a baseline assumption that I think we're, in many cases, kind of struggling to meet. That people can still be receiving the training that they need to do their jobs well, to do their jobs safely. How do they adjust to doing their jobs in this environment where, staying 6 feet apart or whatever other provisions are being made at the local level where they work? How is it that they do that? Show me how. Show me what I need to do. Show me how things work here now at this company. I get that there's all these things happening out there in the world, but what do I do? How do I respond? How do I do what I do now? And it's one thing to tell people, wash your hands and cleanse surfaces and cover your mouth and things like that. But it's another one to let people know how to adapt what they do to this environment.
Yeah, I would almost imagine that there's an expectation for more pushed training, just because they're not even sure at this point what they need. So for sure that has changed. Oop, I have a typo in that. Let me fix that. Sorry, thank you, Patricia, who caught my typo. I can't pat my head and rub my belly at the same time. And then if you're an organization who, I'm assuming most have already made this transition, but I think there are still some going through it. If you are an organization that has been primarily instructor-led with your training, do you have any suggestions, and maybe Sam, you can help with this too, to aid in that initial transition? We talked about build versus buy. What should they do right away to get started?
Cindy first this time.
I think making sure that your managers and employees are successful working from home. So if you haven't done so, I would say get your managers training on how to lead remotely, get your employees training on how to be successful working from home, so that they are as productive. Now,
yeah, if you don't have that set, then nothing's going to go right.
Right,
exactly.
Right. Yep. And so in my presentation, I had those two as the last two. I should have moved them to be the first two. And then and then the question is, what do you need to keep doing in person, and what can be done online, and go through that analysis.
That's great.
And I would add, in making that transition from the ILT kind of environment to something that is virtual, get help. Good help is hard to find right now because a lot of it's already very, very busy. I'm just recently new to Convatec, but for 15 years had my own business. And in, the most of the last few months, it's been doing exactly this, helping people transition. And there are still good folks out there, people who have done this before, so that you can avoid some of those beginner mistakes. Having more interaction more often, it's hard to go wrong. Making sure that you're sticking to those real learning objectives, it's hard to go wrong. I think there's a knee-jerk reaction for people to try and adapt the activity that we have in an ILT to work in an online setting. And sometimes that's good, but does it really work in that setting? It's something to closely examine. I see people spinning their wheels often, trying to force the square peg into the round hole. And there are people who have solved that problem before. So I would say if you haven't done a lot of work like this in the past, find people who have.
That's great. Good tips. All right, well, I don't see any additional questions. So I wanted to thank Sam for hanging in there and persevering to get on, and for Cindy for her excellent presentation and a good conversation. So I appreciate everyone attending. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Caroline. Thanks, Cindy. Nice work.
Thanks, Sam.